It is impossible to know exactly what happened, but we can piece together some things in an intelligent and logical fashion.
People don't realize that there are potential killers among them. Be able to see we can identify these dangerous people.
The scene had been staged in order to convey an impression.
How could anyone live in a society where people they liked, loved, lived with, worked with, and admired, the next day turn out to be the most demonic people imaginable?
Alexandria, Kentucky is located about 20 minutes from Cincinnati, Ohio. Robert Bosley, known to friends as Bob, was married to Amy Bosley. They had 2 sons together, ages 7 and 10. Bob owned a roofing company, which he grew into a multi-million-dollar corporation called Bosley Roofing and Chimney Sweep, Inc. Bob's mother, Audrey, said Bob liked to help out others when he could, telling the story of one woman who was in need of roofing repairs, but was worried about how she was going to pay for it. After repairing the roof, Bob said to the woman, "Merry Christmas, don't worry about it." When he wasn't working, Bob liked to spend his spare time playing with his various sources of recreation, which included sports cars, horses, a plane, and his favorite, a yacht. The couple owned a number of properties which gave them the opportunity to spend time vacationing. In 2005, the family was living in their cabin while their dream home was being built on their 35-acre farm in Pendleton County, a half hour from Alexandria. The home was being built to resemble a castle. On May 17, 2005, the family was at the cabin when just before 5 a.m., Amy Bosley woke up to an intruder in their bedroom. Amy heard shots, then called 911.
Someone is breaking into our house and my husband...
Down one.
Oh my God. I don't know what to do. No, you can't go to bed, my kids.
Where they at?
The operator heard a thump, then the call disconnected, so they called Amy back.
Is the house down?
He just grabbed and he shot my husband. Oh my God. He shot my husband.
When police arrived at the cabin, they found Bob in the bedroom in a kneeling position beside the bed with his head face down on the mattress. The responding officers noticed multiple bullet wounds on his body. When paramedics arrived, Bob was pronounced dead at the scene. Amy described the intruder as a white male in his 30s, about 5 foot 6 inches tall, and 170 pounds. He had a stocking over his face, but she described his face as pointed and very mean. She said he had a speech impediment and smelled of urine. Amy said that she told the children to stay in their rooms when they woke up and heard the noise. The children were unharmed in their beds. The house had been ransacked. Video taken of the crime scene shows the kitchen with cupboard doors open. In the bathroom, open pill bottles and pills were thrown around the sink. A hairbrush lay flat on the floor next to a handful of pills. The top shelf of the medicine cabinet had 2 unopened bottles. The sink contained a number of pills, 3 unopened medicine bottles and 2 open with their caps laying on the floor. A hallway closet was open with items pulled out on the floor. In the living room, a number of $20 bills laid on the floor in a pile, along with a set of keys, a lighter, a ball cap, and a wallet. The window pane closest to the doorknob on the back door was smashed. The clothing Amy was wearing was torn. She had 2 small scratches on her chest and 1 behind her right ear. She described an altercation that took place between her and the intruder before he fled. Police found 2 shell casings on the bedroom floor from a 9mm handgun. At the beginning of the investigation, police announced to the media that Amy was the only person they had ruled out as a possible suspect, believing Bob had been killed while confronting an intruder. Amy spoke at the press conference held by police. She said, "We have every faith in the police department and the investigation to find this killer. We are helping the authorities in every way we can. Unfortunately, as of now, all I can remember is that I woke up and was on the floor. I heard shots and saw a man leave the house." Police believe the motive for the crime could have been drugs, but if that were the case, the pills in the bathroom wouldn't have been left behind, some bottles even unopened, plus a stack of cash was left behind. The autopsy found Bob was shot 7 times, although investigators only found 2 shell casings in the bedroom. Amy suggested to police that the intruder might have been one of Bob's clients or employees, because Bob's roofing company had a high turnover rate over the years. Police looked into the possibility of a disgruntled employee being responsible. During her interview with police, Amy had this to say about Bob.
There's times when Bob has disagreements with people. He's pretty nasty. And he's very in their face. You definitely know where he stands and what he thinks.
Amy told police that 2 days before Bob's death, he had an argument with his friend Noah Heim.
Noah owed Bob money. And he gave him a check for he owed him, I think, over $1,000, and he only paid him $200 of it in big long note. Why he didn't know the rest of the money, I remember Bobby saying, "You keep around people, you're gonna make friends, love."
Noah and Bob grew up together in Alexandria. Noah was the best man in Bob and Amy's wedding, and Bob even employed Noah as a contractor for his business. When questioned by police, Noah told them that he had nothing to do with his friend's murder, and investigators were able to confirm his alibi.
I'd like to get some closure, find out why this happened, why my best friend was murdered in the middle of the night.
Investigators spoke with Bob's employees and found that they had nothing but good things to say about Bob. How Bob would help them out when they needed it by giving them advances on their pay, telling them to pay it back when they could. While searching the cabin for the possible item used to break the window in the back door, officers located a safe in the basement, and for some reason they opened it. Amy may have given them permission to open the safe, though this is unknown. Inside the safe, police found photos of Bob on his yacht, with women other than his wife wearing revealing bathing suits. Bob liked to take clients out on his yacht on Lake Cumberland, a 3.5-hour drive from Alexandria. He also held parties on the yacht and took many young women out on the lake. One woman who attended the parties on the lake was Darla Cope. Bob met Darla at one of his boat parties. Darla was 10 years younger than Bob. Rumor had it, Bob and Darla had an affair behind Amy's back. Darla was one of the women in the photos found in the safe of the cabin. Police spoke to Darla and were able to confirm her alibi for the night of Bob's death. She said there was no bad blood between her and Bob, and that she wasn't involved with another man who might have committed the crime out of jealousy. Police interviewed a number of people who knew the couple. What they gathered was that Amy and Bob's marriage was on the rocks. They were bitter towards one another openly in front of others. Police interviewed Bob and Amy's 2 young boys who were witnesses to their father's death. The children said that they heard shots fired, then the breaking of the glass window of the back door. This contradicted Amy's claim of an intruder breaking into the home and shooting Bob. Police obtained a search warrant and began a thorough search of the cabin. When the police searched the basement, they found an aluminum baseball bat tucked away under the stairs. Experts took a look at the bat and found small pieces of glass embedded in the aluminum. The glass was compared to the broken glass found by the back door by using the refractive index. This process is done by measuring the speed of light through a transparent object. The glass is placed in silicone liquid, then heated. The point where the glass disappears is called its refractive index. The glass tested from the bat matched the glass from the door of the cabin. Paint fragments were also found on the bat that were matched to the paint on the door. Police also found something of interest hidden inside the washing machine. At the bottom of a full load of laundry sitting in water, they found a towel wrapped up in a ball. Inside the towel were 4 shell casings. When these casings were compared to the 2 casings found in the bedroom, the examiner concluded the shells were similar. Police thought if an intruder intended on robbery, they wouldn't take the time to hide the shell casings or baseball bat. Most of the glass from the broken window was found on the outside of the door, meaning the window was broken from the inside. Police searched for the murder weapon by searching a pond and land near the cabin, but were unable to locate a gun. Although Bob had 7 bullet holes in his body, there were only 6 bullet casings found at the scene. This could have been a result of 1 bullet striking him twice. If Bob was awake when he was shot, he might have held up his arms to defend himself from the shots, at which point one of the bullets could have went through his arm or hand to his head or torso. Police were contacted by the IRS after Bob's death to inform them that Bob's company hadn't paid its corporate tax for the last 5 years, owing a total of $1.7 million in back taxes. Amy was responsible for the bookkeeping at Bob's company. It turns out that over the years, Amy didn't pay the state income tax, federal income tax, workers' comp, social security, or other business expenses. The IRS asked to see Amy's business records, to which she agreed to send but never did. After meeting with the IRS, Amy was told that they wanted to meet Bob. Amy tried everything she could think of to not have Bob know about the situation with the IRS. She even pretended to be Bob on the phone with an IRS agent who told police Amy sounded like Kermit the Frog. There was no evidence to suggest that Bob knew about the situation with the IRS. Amy would have Bob sign what he believed were his tax returns each year. The IRS had arranged a meeting with Amy for the morning of Bob's death. Amy called them that morning and told them that they wouldn't be able to meet because Bob had been murdered. Amy told police that Bob did most of the partying while she stayed at home with the children. But investigators didn't quite believe this, considering Amy was one of the women in the photographs found in the safe of the parties on Bob's boat. It was speculated by those who knew the couple that both were seeing other people during their marriage. Bob's sister Debbie said Amy told her that she would shoot Bob in his sleep if he was ever unfaithful to her or left her. While being interviewed by police, Amy was making crying sounds, but her face stayed dry. Further examination of the clothes Amy was wearing that night showed that the shirt had been cut in the middle of the neckline, then pulled apart. The scratches on Amy's neck were believed to be self-inflicted using a pair of scissors. Police believe on the night of Bob's death, Amy put the children to bed and waited for Bob to fall asleep. Amy then used Bob's 9mm handgun to shoot him. She then tried to clean up the scene by picking up the 4 shell casings and made a mess of the cabin to make it look like someone had been looking for something. She then used the bat to break the back door window and hid the bat under the stairs. The bat was identified by one of the children as belonging to them. She put the shell casings in a towel before placing the towel in the bottom of the washing machine. She then used scissors to cut her shirt and herself to make it appear she had been in a struggle. Once the scene was staged, Amy called 911. Amy was arrested 10 days after Bob's death at 10:45 a.m. and charged with murder. Police were still searching for the murder weapon. A video that was taken from a dash cam on one of the responding vehicles on the morning of Bob's death showed Amy and her sister leaving the property around 6 a.m. The video showed Amy wrapped in a blanket while her sister was carrying a purse, which was later identified as Amy's purse. Amy's sister had been in possession of the purse since Bob's murder. Once Amy was arrested, her sister looked inside the purse and found a 9mm handgun. She hired a lawyer and turned the gun over to the police. The handgun was examined by ballistic experts who determined the 2 shell casings found in the bedroom were shot by this gun. The 4 casings found in the washing machine were too mutilated to be able to be compared to the gun. When police searched the cabin, they found another one of Amy's handbags hidden in the back of a cupboard. It contained a Glock handgun belonging to Bob. Amy could have hidden this gun from Bob so he would not be able to defend himself. Investigators believe the motive for Bob's death was revenge and money. Amy destroyed Bob's business on purpose in order to get even with him for being unfaithful. Amy didn't want Bob to find out that she hadn't paid the income taxes for his roofing company for the last 5 years. Amy believed if Bob died, they wouldn't owe the IRS money anymore. Investigators searched Amy's car and found hundreds of unmailed checks to the IRS, totaling $1.7 million in back taxes. 1 year after Bob's death, Amy accepted a plea deal, pleading guilty to first-degree murder, and on November 2, 2006, received 20 years in prison. Prosecutors said that the children were witnesses and would have to testify to what they heard that night. To spare the children taking the stand, Amy pled guilty. Bob's parents said that they pushed for Amy to take the plea deal to spare the children from testifying because Amy was going to go ahead with the trial anyway, before finally pleading guilty. Before pleading guilty, Amy's defense lawyer claimed that the bullet casings found in the washing machine fell out of Bob's jeans, like coins might during a wash cycle. Prosecutors believe Amy stashed the money she took from Bob's company by burying it in the backyard of the family farm. Amy was also convicted of tampering with physical evidence, for which she received an additional 5 years. There is no appeal process available for people who plead guilty. Bob's business died with him. Investigators were unable to account for all of Amy's spending and assumed she kept some money hidden so that she would have money when she gets out of prison. The couple's children lived with Bob's parents after his death. Amy currently resides at the Kentucky Correctional Institution for Women, a medium security prison. Amy's expected release date is May 18th, 2022.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story, and I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Here's what's making news.
Murder for hire. Murder for hire.
Murder for hire.
Murder for hire.
Murder for hire.
Murder for hire.
Murder for hire.
Murder for hire.
Murder for hire.
Murder for hire.
Richard Mako is really just an average guy. He hasn't done time or hung out with any hardened crims, but somehow he found himself the victim of the unthinkable.
I'm just a normal guy. Some would call me a geek. I work with computers. Up until recently, I really haven't had much to do with the law at all.
He was dating Michaela Zadarrell. The two were smitten to begin with, but after 3 years together, the relationship turned sour and they went their separate ways. Michaela began dating her longtime friend and the couple's chiropractor, Adrian Orloff. For 6 months, the chiro obsessed over his girlfriend's ex. Following Richard's every move on social media, the pair would hang out near Richard's house.
Which was odd, given that he didn't live anywhere near the area and she also lived a couple of kilometres away. I had to stop going down to the foreshore. I was fearful of what may take place if they saw me.
It's mid-2015 and Adrian Orloff meets with someone he believes is capable of carrying out the crime. He hires him to kidnap Richard and gives him a down payment of $5,000, with an extra $15,000 when the job is done. Court documents allege he gave the man syringes filled with a powerful sedative to drug his partner's ex. He tells the hired thug to deliver Richard to a rural property where he'll take care of the rest. Little does he know he's just hired an undercover police officer. Richard had no idea his safety might be at risk until he got a call from police. They told him and his siblings to leave their Melbourne home and go into hiding. For their own protection, they were kept in the dark about Adrian Orloff's true intentions.
It was bizarre. It was bizarre. That was probably the worst I had felt in a very long time. I never really thought that someone would go as far as wanting to end my life. I felt betrayed.
Richard's brother Jason says it was a terrifying time.
Staying in Melbourne wasn't an option anymore because I looked so similar to my brother Richie. It reminded me of a movie, but instead of being able to watch it, I was experiencing it. You almost get used to this sense of having to watch your back. In a very short time, it becomes a norm.
Just days after his life and liberty were being bought and sold between the chiropractor and the undercover cop, CCTV cameras reveal a frightening incident at his house. Here you can see a hooded figure going through the gate, hovering by Richard's sister's car. Frustrated by hiding in a hotel for several weeks, Richard and his siblings went home to pick up some of their belongings and found a tracking device under the vehicle.
I discovered this snap-lock bag with electrical tape wrapped around it, and it just exposed a series of batteries and computer devices.
Police made their move and Adrian was arrested. Only then did Richard learn the full extent of his sickening plot.
I was very angry. I was shocked. Just words couldn't really describe all the emotions that was flooding through my mind at that time. It said that he wished to burn my body in a crematorium device. I mean, the level of detail and planning to eradicate one's DNA.
You never did anything to this guy.
No, I was his patient. I even paid for him to crack my neck. I do question what the motivations are. I do question about what he may be thinking or why.
Orloff pleaded guilty to inciting an undercover police officer to kidnap his former patient, as well as possessing vials of various drugs without a licence and a cartridge of ammunition without a permit. In court, the judge said that he'd undertaken painstaking surveillance measures.
It's difficult not to attach the word sinister to it. It was prolonged, extravagantly bad.
I feel incredibly lucky to be alive. This is a second chance. If it wasn't for the undercover operative, who knows who else he may have been able to hire. My eyes are always open. I'm a little bit more fearful about what could take place in the shadows. I always watch my back.
Have you forgiven him?
It is important that I forgive him because it's important for me to move on with my life. And I feel sorry for him throwing away his life, of the impacts that this not only has upon him, but also his family. I hope he realises that I'm not worth killing.
Adrian Orloff faces up to 25 years in jail.
Well, that's going to do it for all of us here.
Thanks for listening. Find the podcast on YouTube, and while you're there, subscribe. I'm also on Instagram at Staged Crime Scenes Podcast. You can follow on Twitter. Email anytime, stagedcrimescenespodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube.